So I just explained to you that there is no solution. And here we have the last lesson called the solution. So let's look a little bit to it. That it should not be contradictory to what we just learned. But we saw that there is no solution for the life of Adam, which is, of course, the life that every one of us have inherited. By no choice, every human being is brought into the world, since no one can choose to be born, or to choose not to be born. Everyone on this earth inherits the dead life of Adam, and therefore the deception, believing subconsciously that he is God by no choice. Nothing good can come from this life, only evil, and man is now bound to live and die in slavery by no choice. Since the life of Adam cannot be saved. So this is the very sad outlook that every human individual must come to understand to be able to take the solution. You see, the reason we spend so much time talking about the incapacity and the captivity and the impossibility of man to do the right and the good is because the solution is very simple. But to see yourself is very, very difficult. Now, the more you speak to human beings about this topic, the more you will come to realize the deception not only in the humanity in general, but the deception of your own heart. Because you must come, when you come to another person and hears the story of his life, you must come to think to yourself, do I do the same? And every time I speak to an individual, I see myself in them, because I have the same deception. Now, because I see myself so smart and so much better than everyone else, usually I find that the other one is more unreasonable than me. Do you find it to be like that also? Yeah? Isn't it nice? No, it's not so nice, but it's good to recognize that this is what we all do. So, some time ago, I was spending time with people, and there was this one person that even though I kept trying to explain the problem of his heart, he somehow turned the conversation and he saw the problem of another person's heart. Do you know the heart of another one? Do you believe you know the heart of another one? Yes, we all do. We think we see the heart of the other one. We, of course, must recognize that when something comes out which is not nice, when anger and disease and those things come out, we must see the fruit of the heart of the other one. But we can never know the heart of the other one. And who knows, this person, when he understands the truth, he might come to learn it much faster than you. You never know. But I thought to myself, after this encounter, I thought to myself, it is incredible how blind humanity is. Just last night, maybe you remember yesterday I told you I hate to be corrected. And what happens immediately? Nobody dare to correct me. Is that good? No. You should always correct me no matter how I feel about it. Yeah? It would be sad that I go out in this world and I have the wrong idea and I keep on preaching it. Very sad. So, but someone came to just correct me a little bit. And what happened? Immediately I thought, a way of explaining away what I did. I thought I did well enough, and the other one comes with their little idea, and I think, I know better. Yeah? So it's so difficult for the human being to see himself. And this is why this is the most important part of the message, is to explain to the human being the deception of his heart, because we do not see it ourselves. With a little bit of practice, and the more you come to know the message, the more you see yourself in the deepness of the deception, or the depth of the deception. And it's very, very ugly. It's very, very ugly. And it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's from the, it doesn't even, it starts, it has no end. It has no start. Well, conception is the start, but when you wake up in the morning, it goes on all day, and it goes on all evening. And when you go to sleep, it's all repeated of what happened during the day. Maybe you go home from here today and you just try and have a bit of a look to yourself and see how many times a day am I annoyed when people do not meet my needs. I tell you, I stopped counting. Now I work in a place where I have assistants, and there's many things you can do without an assistant as a dentist, but many things will take much longer if the assistant is not there. And so for some efficiency, we have the assistant, and many things, or some things you can barely do well if she's not there, or he's not there. And just the amount of times a day I feel my heart rising when things are not there when I need them. When things are not done the way that I want them to be done. I'm very happy that I know that we have no choice. I'm very happy to know it for myself, because it brings some relief when I believe it and I remember it. But I'm very happy that I know it, so that when my assistant is not according to what I want her to be, I know she is doing her very best. Because then I never need to look to her, I never need to correct her, but who do I need to correct? Myself. Now sometimes it happens that I do not succeed in controlling myself, but most of the time my assistants do not know of my annoyance, and I'm very happy about it. They think me to be a very nice person. Maybe one day they come to know better, but it should be so that people will never, ever, ever know our dissatisfaction. Because we will know that the problem is never outside of us. It's always an inside thing. Now, I didn't choose to be born with this inheritance, so I have no guilt. And this inheritance is just inheritance. It is not me. You see, Paul says that when I do the wrong, it comes out of the evil in me, but it is not me. Because I was made to be a channel, and be a channel alone. Now, I inherited something that made me a clogged channel, but this is not me. It's just the inheritance. So I don't go against myself, but I go against the root of evil that exists in me. And this will keep me out of self-condemnation, because self-condemnation is the idea that I am God. I can judge myself. I see myself as a lost case. You see, Paul also says, he says, I never judge myself because I have no idea how much evil is left in me. When I do the good, I cannot know from where it comes. It may be the apple tree, it may be the hawthorn. Only when I do the evil, I recognize that something is still left in my heart that needs to go out. But even that I have no choice for, so I don't judge it. I just have the responsibility to take care of it. So, this is the inescapable problem of humanity, the lie that I am God. It causes him uncontrolled behavior, suffering, and disease. And God cannot reach him because he has no access from the outside. Humanity is self-governed, and as he inherits the life of Adam, he cannot reach for God, and God cannot get in. But God provided another life and a supernatural choice to exchange the old life with a new one. So this choice is not an inbuilt, or built, I keep wanting to put around the words, a built-in choice. But God puts a bit of pressure on the outside. And when the human being comes to understand that there is no way out, God says, but I have another life. This is the deception, and now I give you a choice to walk away from the deception and walk into a new life. So we are going to see a little bit how this works and how God gets us in a position where he can make the offer, and the offer will be efficient. So this is the life of Jesus that God provided for us. When he came here, he was still a human had a human percent divinity, and he didn't change from being God to being human, but he clothed his divinity in humanity. So he was 100% God, and he was 100% human. It's like maybe some clothings he put on, and once in a while we see in the Bible that some of the divinity was shining out, revealing the divine nature. But most of the time, he worked through his humanity, and he never worked through his divinity for himself. See, when they put him on the cross, and they said, "Doctor, you must be able to heal yourself. You could get down from the cross if you wanted." Could he? But what would happen if he did? He would break the law, and there would be no salvation for man anymore. Okay? So he could never use his divinity for himself. Sometimes he used it for other people. When he came to the earth, he had a mother, Mary, and from his mother he had 50% of his spirit and 50% of his body. We all have this. You have a mother and a father. And from Mary, he inherited the lie that I am God. From his father, he had 50% of his spirit and 50% of his body. And here he inherited the full truth of being a child of God. Now, the nature he inherited from Mary, he never had to use because he had the full truth. So in every situation, even though he bore the sinful nature in him, he knew the truth exactly. And this is the difference between me and Jesus, since I'm only a daughter of man or a son of man, but Jesus was the Son of Man and the Son of God. Now every day he saw the deception that was in him. He never lived according to it, but he saw that the sinful nature was there, and he crucified it. And in the end, on the cross, he took it away forever, and it was finished. Now, after the deception was removed, he had a body and a spirit that carried how many years of inheritance of evil nature? Many years. So even though the deception was no longer there, the body was not as the body of Adam when he was created, and the spirit was not with the capacity of the spirit when humanity was made in the first place. So the whole man had to die on the cross. So first the deception goes, and then the human being dies. And as he resurrects, he now still has divinity, and he still has humanity. He has only one nature, knowing that he is a child of God, a son of God. The new creature, that means the right kind of motivation, the right nature, new spirit, and a new body, with no marks of inheritance anymore, of our evil inheritance. And he becomes the second Adam. See, the first Adam fell, and so all of humanity had fallen nature. And now the second Adam comes with another life that the human being can escape to. And the connection between man and God can now never be separated again. So coming into this life, every believer that takes the life of Christ by faith will one day become this new creature. Yes, that's very wonderful news, is it? I mean, we can not comprehend it. As long as we're here on this earth, we take the new life by faith. But one day when Christ comes, that new life will be reality, and we will have a new spirit and a new body, and we will have only the correct orientation. Now, orientation has to be taken care of before Jesus comes, but the change of his spirit and his body will take place when Jesus comes back to the earth. And because we now have this everlasting connection between man and God, sin will never again be possible. I think it's the most beautiful thing. The most beautiful thing. So God provided a new life for mankind, and every human being has a way of escape into this new life at some point during the life he has here on earth. We know that Adam and Eve were created only to be dependent on God, and they separated themselves from him. And now the life of Adam is dead. And everyone who came after Adam and Eve inherited the wrong idea that I am God. And even Jesus had the idea that I am God, but he never used it. Yeah, but it was in his being, in his spirit. But from God he had the true nature, the true understanding of who he is. And he crucified the wrong idea that I am God. And he crucified the whole being on the cross to provide another life for anyone who wants a life that lasts forever. So Adam's life has an end, but the life of the new creature is everlasting. Now this is after the cross, and this is me. And all I have is the idea that I am God. And I'd very much like to come to an understanding of how I go from having one life to having another life. Because that's the essential knowledge we need to have as a solution. But first, we must look to the difficult task of God. Because what does God have to do to bring us to the understanding that we have no choice? We know now that everyone is poor, blind, broken-hearted, and captive and bruised. And Jesus says to the Pharisees, "For judgment I am come into this world, that they which see might not see, or those which see not might see, and they that see might be made blind." And some of the Pharisees which were with him heard these words and said unto him, "Are we blind also?" You see, this is sometimes what I hear when I talk to the members of my church. They say, "Does that mean that you really believe?" And they don't even only include themselves, but they include any person on this earth. And they said, "Do you really think that people are so sinful that they make themselves sick?" I find it to be such an odd question. I wonder if they think sin is a little thing or a big thing. Small problem or big problem. sin is such a deep and difficult problem that we have no idea how deep it goes. So, the human being is a cause, or is the cause, or his nature is the cause of the disease. But God must control the effect to help him understand his issue. So Jesus said unto them, if ye were blind, ye should have no sin. Do you know what he's saying? If you were really not seeing, you wouldn't be guilty. Because you have no choice. But now ye say, we see, therefore your sin remaineth. Does it mean that the Pharisees actually saw? No. So, but the interpretation would be that Jesus showed the Pharisee that he was deceived. He offered him a way out of the deception, and the Pharisee declined. And if you see the deception in your heart, and you stay there when you have the offering of a way out, then you cannot be helped anymore. But we can never know when the offer of seeing the deception comes. And God sometimes put many opportunities. I've known this message for about 10 or 11 years, and it took me a very long time even to come to the conclusion that I might be smart enough to understand it. See how much effort God put just into one individual's life to help them understand that he has an issue and he has the responsibility to work it out. Now, did I stay in ignorance on purpose? No, but I did not understand the severity of the problem, and I did not understand the necessity of my responsibility. And in many places and areas in my life, I still do not understand my responsibility. And in many places in my life, I still see the evil nature showing his face on my body, in my actions, in my way of behavior. But now I know what to do about it. So God's difficult task, he walks into the prison and tells the prisoners, this is not a good place to be, I'd like to help you out. And what do the prisoners says? The food is so good here. We have a bed, there is warmth. No, I think I'll pass. Do you know that this happened when God wanted to help the Israelites out of Egypt? What did they say when they came to the desert? Oh, we wish we would never have left Egypt. But even when they were there, it is written that God had to put the miracles for the sake of... Do you remember that he put the 10 plagues? Why did he put the 10 plagues? Who did he have to convict? Yeah, it says that he puts the information there for the Egyptians. So the Egyptians, he of course had to try to convince Pharaoh, because he's the one who wouldn't let the people go. But yes, that's the thing. It says that God put the miracles there to convict Pharaoh so that he will let the people go, to show the Egyptians who's really God. Some of the Egyptians followed the Israelites when they left Egypt, because God knew that some of them would be open to the message of salvation. And the last thing it says when you read the chapters about the 10 plagues is that God put the miracles there for the Israelites because they had no faith. They were not ready to leave the land that suppressed their freedom. Isn't it interesting? See, this is exactly what happened 3.5 years ago. 3.5 years ago, we had the greatest trial going all of this world. And when I came to the church and I said, I believe Jesus is coming now, the whole church said, oh, well, he might come today, he might come in 7 years, or 10, or 50. We never know. This is the same thing they said when I was young. Maybe you're a bit older than me, so you haven't heard those words. But when you're very young, people look to you and think, she will grow out of it. Very astonished when I heard those words, because I thought to myself, here we are proclaiming to be the people waiting for Jesus, but none of us wants to go home. Was I an exception? No, I didn't want to go home either. I was afraid. I still have deception in my heart about this matter. But when we see the deception, we should not stay there. We should go to God and say, if I am a Christian, I proclaim to be the one waiting for the coming of the Messiah, and I don't want to go home. Do I have a problem? Where do I take that problem? Do I ignore it? I cannot ignore the problem. I must look myself in the mirror and say, I have an issue, and it's a big issue, and then I take that issue to my Father in heaven. So when we come to understand information by reason, now at least we can take that information to God and come to an understanding what goes on inside. We may not be able to change our life immediately. We may not be able to know how to get self-control immediately. But at least we have some information, and now the working out of our responsibility begins. So, God's effort to reach humanity after the fall of Adam. He has to somehow help the prisoners see themselves as prisoners. This world is therefore the only place in the universe where the leaves fall off the trees in wintertime, when the needs are not fulfilled of the tree. It is the only place where the flowers die when they are separated from their root, because God would like for us to see that dependency is no choice. It is the only place where dysfunction and death happens, when physical needs of nature are not met. And God must apply suffering and disease, because by all means available, he has to convince man that he is living a lie, that he believes a lie. Now, is this an easy thing for God? Does it cause him joy to see his child suffer? It does not. But what is more important to God is that the life of man will last eternally, and he will get free of his deception, instead of letting him stay in deception and die eternally. So, who cursed the ground for man's sake? God did. See, many things that God has applied for our salvation, we give the devil the credits. And those things that is rooted only in the sinful nature and comes from the devil, we give God the credit. So we turn things upside down. But God cursed the ground. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And to Adam he said, Cursed is the ground for thy sake, in sorrow shalt thou eat of it all of thy days of thy life. And thorns also and thistles shall bring it forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return to the ground. Now we know the law, that nothing can live or function from itself. Everything must be a channel, and therefore nothing can live or function for itself either. We have the cause, we have the effect, the entrance and the exit, the taking and the giving. How many sources do we have of power? Okay. Only one? From where do the source, or from where do the power of the devil come? Does, someone says from God, someone says from himself, does the devil have any power in himself? So whose power must he use? God's power. Okay? So if God is the only source of power on this planet, then who is in control of all circumstances? God. So God controls all effects through the laws of nature. So who is in control of the rain and the sunshine? Is God always in control of the rain and sunshine? No? Only sometimes. Who controls the rain and the sunshine when God doesn't? Can man interfere with nature? With whose power would man interfere with nature? With God's power. Okay, so we are a little bit confused. I hear a little bit here and a little bit there. So there is only one source of power in this world. That power is the only power any creation, any creature can live from. That means it does not matter if you are a human being, you're a cat, you're a good angel or a bad angel, or you're the devil himself. There is only one source of power. The devil has no power in himself because he is a created being. Now, he is kept superficially alive by God because he is not connected to God. But the power he lives by is the power of God, and he may misuse the power, but it's still God's power. There is no one who can control neither rain or sunshine except the one who made the sun and the clouds that rain. It is impossible. So God is not in control of the rain and the sunshine. Sometimes he is the only one who can ever control the resources on this planet. Now, sometimes the power he gives out, the human being takes it and he misapplies it. Does God intervene? Sometimes. Do you remember the story of Balaam? So Balaam had the purpose to curse, and what came out of his mouth? Blessings. By whose power? By God's power. Now we have, when Pharaoh goes after the Israelites into the sea and wants to kill them, by whose power does he drive his horse and his army? By God's power. Does he act according to God's will? No. Does he still use the power of God? Yes. Okay? So there is no one else who can control circumstances or power in this universe except God. Nothing happens except it has been through God's awareness. You know, there's nothing that can go on in the corner over here except God says this will work for eternal good, even though humanity may look at it as if it will be eternal loss. Yeah? You know who made the greatest natural catastrophe on earth? God. Was God the cause of the natural disaster? No. Who was the cause of natural disaster? Humanity. But God controlled the effect. I was on my way to, as I said, we were in the US last fall, and when you go to the US, it's nice to rent a car, and while we were searching out on rental cars, I was looking into some of the insurance papers. And when you look to the insurance papers in America, I don't know if it's the same system here, but American, you can be sued for anything. So you want to be insured from anything that can come towards you, and it said, even from acts of God. Have you heard? I think you also maybe have the term here. We don't use it in Denmark. We don't have a term that puts the natural catastrophes to be the act of God. But it's funny how we have a term that's called acts of God, but how many do actually believe that nature is controlled by God? Not even the Christians. They give the devil the credit. So the means that God puts to reach humanity, we say, oh, the devil did it. Is it a sad thing? Whenever we encounter disease, natural catastrophes, things that go wrong, to help us see our sinful nature, we think it's the work of the enemy. Do you remember Jacob wrestling at night? One of my favorite writers, she says, Jacob had such a fight because he thought it was the hand of the enemy. And this is what we do when trials come into our lives. We fight against the outside as if it is the hand of the enemy. But we must come to understand that whatever we encounter in this universe that helps us see that something in my heart is wrong is the hand of my friend. The one who tries to help me see that I believe a lie. I think it's very nice. So, depression, disease, anger, eczema, fever, cavities, hopelessness, whatever, who is in control? God is in control. I will never have to fear anything again in my life. I don't have to fear the disease because my friend put it there to help me out. I don't have to fear the natural catastrophe because God put it there to help me out. I do not have to fear even my sister's driving because God put her there to help me learn a lesson. Yeah? I never have to fear anything outside again. The only fear, and this is not, it should not even be a fear, but the only effort I need to put is to destroy the evil that puts me into despair. The evil that makes me suffer, which is not an outside thing, but it is an inside problem. Would it be nice if we never fear anything from outside again? If we don't fear anything from outside again, we will never be angry. See, anger is only the result of fear that you might lose something. Your reputation? So why does God control the circumstances like this? He says in Deuteronomy 13, "It shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice, and according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee." There is only one reason why God controls the circumstances in a way that we find in our human nature to be uncomfortable, and it is that he would like to reach us. And if you read other places in Deuteronomy, it says, "Even the diseases that are not listed in this book, I will put upon you." So anything we encounter, we may take it from our Heavenly Father and say, "Thank you, Lord. I know you just want to show me my heart so that you can help me, that I will be able to help others." Inheritance, and this is me. And I have a mother just like Jesus, and a father, and my father is more earthly than the father of Jesus. And from my mom, I have 50% of my spirit and 50% of my body, and the inheritance that I believe myself to be God. And from my father, I have 50% spirit, and from my father, I have 50% of my body. And the inherent idea that I am God. And the only thing I have from conception is the life of Adam. I'm separated from God, the Creator, and instead I bound myself to my mother on my left side of the cortex is where the symptoms might show when she is not as I want her to be, and on the right side of my body. And I bind myself to my father, and on the side where I bind to my mom, I may bind to a boyfriend or a spouse if I have such one. And on the side where I bind to my father, I bind to everyone else. So that includes friends and family and colleagues and patients and audiences and whoever I may encounter in this life. And in the end, I am exactly where the devil wants me.
Can I ask a question, please? You did explain about the limbic system crossing over from the cortex.
Yes, so what crosses over is not the limbic system. The limbic system is set. It's a part of the brain. But the nerves that run from the cortex go through the limbic system, and then they cross over on the other side of the body, and that happens on both sides.
So if you've got something that you've inherited from your mother, an illness, that's going to come from...
It comes from the dependency. The sickness comes from the dependency on the mother. Then
shows on the opposite side of the body, is it below the knee?
yes. So the question is, where will disease show? Where is the crossing over? The idea is that from the neck and up, the disease will be on the same side as the dependency. So the mother is on the left side if you are right-handed. If you're right-handed, the disease will be on the left side of the head, and from the neck down, the disease will show on the right side and down.
So what happens if it's all over the body?
Then you have more than one problem. So the question is, what if you have disease all over the body? Then you must have at least two problems. Yeah? You're welcome. So now the interesting thing is, of course, how do I exchange my life of Adam with the new life? And here we have the life of Jesus before the cross. As the first Adam, his life on earth. And he has the lie, I am God, that he never used. And he has the truth, that I am a child of God. And how much sin did he do? No sin, ever. And then he comes to the cross, and there he puts the sinful nature and destroys it forever. And he resurrects as the second Adam and the new creature. And that life is eternal. After a while, he goes to heaven to be high priest. And when he comes back, he will come back as king to collect his people on earth. And this is my life before the cross. I have only one nature. And how much sin? Nothing but sin. Now, I always wanted to be a good Christian. I was brought up in a Christian home, in an Adventist home, in a more liberal home, but I was always very serious as a child to make the decision to follow Jesus. But of course, I had no idea what it meant. I was baptized when I was only 12 years old, and at the time I had an influence in my family. I wanted to study the Bible, and I wanted to learn more about God, and we were never a home that had met much of devotions or anything, but at the time or the period when I wanted to be baptized, everyone in the family gathered for devotion at night, and we were studying the Bible and other spiritual writings. And after a while, after the baptism, my parents were divorced. And there are a few things, of course, that changed. But even through the divorce, I had the idea, the child understands some things, there's some things she doesn't understand. But I had the idea that nothing was outside of God's control. So, of course, many of the ideas were still superficial and very selfish, because the tension of a broken home is not so nice to be in. And when you are a child that longs for harmony, sometimes the separation of the parents, even though it will cause disease, it still has immediate relief because now the conflict is not as close to you anymore. And I would hear my parents yelling at night when I was in my room. So when my parents announced that they were going to be divorced, I didn't cry. And a few days later, I was a bit excited to pack up my things and go live in a new place. But of course, the child is still influenced by what happened in the home, and this is, of course, what made me cause the disease in myself. When I went to high school, I encountered a few other young people that were also in some way wanting to be religious, and it was an Adventist school. But many of the young people were brought up in an even more liberal home than myself, and I was in need of the love of the others, so I would follow them wherever they went, also to things that, out partying and other things that I had the idea from home that it was not good, but I had no argument for why I shouldn't do it. And so after a while, I realized this is not the path I should be in. I dated a guy that was a bit older than me, and he was very much ready to be married, and I was just 21 going to university, and I thought, I am not ready to be so serious about this yet, and I just wanted to try out life on my own, and he wanted to take care of me, and I was not ready for someone to take care of me. Very kind guy. But the other thing was that he also did not know, he was not sure that heaven was an actual place. He did not believe Jesus to be a man that had actually been on earth. And at the time, at least, he did not know if the Word of God was actually the Word of God. And I don't know what he believes today, but my sister at that time had become very strictly conservative in her behavior. And my mother was leaving the church. So I came into a crisis, because I felt like the people I was depending upon, they were not in agreement. And so I thought to myself, I have to just take some time out to come to an understanding of what is the truth. Because I was very afraid that God might give me up if I don't live according to the truth. I had more times during my youth some ideas that now I don't do these things anymore because I think that's wrong, and now I don't do these things anymore because I think that's wrong. But they lasted very shortly because my family didn't agree with me or my friends didn't agree with me. But this time I thought, I stay on the Bible until I know what I believe. And so it didn't take long for me to understand that if you are a Christian, you must at some point come to be only in the truth and never do the wrong again. And this is not the teaching we have in the liberal church, in the Adventist church. So I thought, now I move from one part of the church because I know they're wrong, and I go to the other part of the church. And for a long time, I called this event conversion. But what happened when I converted, and now suddenly all of my old friends lived lives that I could not live in agreement with anymore? I got very depressed because all of my love sources were taken away. Yeah? So not because my friends didn't like me anymore and not because I didn't like them, but of course we had less in common. So I didn't attend the same things that I attended before, and I had nowhere to go to feed on anymore. And since my mom was not in the church, she didn't understand anything what was going on. And I had started to talk a bit more to my sister, but it was still a bit of a difficulty because she really wanted me to break up with this man that I was dating, and in the beginning I was not very much ready to do that, so that relationship had been a little bit difficult also. And now I've stayed, I stayed with the more conservative part of the church at home. And what are you taught in the conservative church? That you have a choice. I tell you, the idea that you have a choice is such a difficult idea. If you do not get rid of it, it will kill you. I had such a struggle coming to the church because I saw that everyone was better than me of taking care of the outside and cutting off the leaves. And I thought to myself, if this is the Christian life, I cannot bear it. And since I knew, somehow I just, in my heart, I never doubted that God exists. I doubted that he was love, or that was probably a more subconscious understanding because I was not aware of it. But I was sure that God was there, so I couldn't leave the church. And so I had to decide something doesn't add up. Something must be wrong in the beliefs of this church. And then I encountered a doctor coming from Germany, explaining to me that I have no choice, and Jesus and I are not exactly the same, because if Jesus had only the sinful nature that I was born with, I thought, before the doctor came, I thought, if this is how Jesus was, how on earth will he be able to help me? Because the teaching is that I have a sinful nature, Jesus has a sinful nature, Jesus can abstain from sin, so can you. It's such ignorance. So when I heard I have no choice and the nature of Christ, I thought, this is the most reasonable thing I've ever heard in my life. I will cling to this man until I understand it. So I did. And I wanted to put my life up here and make the exchange. Now, the idea is that my old life and my whole past, whatever anyone ever did to me, is now on the cross. And instead of my life, I take the life of Jesus. Now, how many things was ever done to me now? Nothing was ever done to me anymore. And how much evil did I now do? No evil ever. See, it's very nice when you come to the understanding. And I think it took more for me, it took much more time than just encountering the doctor, to understand that there is absolutely no choice, and the only way out is to take another life than your own, because your own life is so, so dirty. I had the idea that I was pretty all right until I came to the more conservative part of the church, and I was trying to measure up to the standard and realizing that I really couldn't. But even then, I thought for a long time, well, I might not be the nicest, but look at these conservative Adventists. They are at least worse than me. Yeah? And still today, I have the idea, many times, that it's not so bad, is it? But God graciously brings me into situations over and over and over where I get to see my own heart and I get to see the severity of the situation. Now, when I put my life on the cross, I never did anything wrong in the past anymore, and no one ever did anything to me anymore. But I still have many places in my heart where I believe myself to be God. So now the walk starts. I got a supernatural choice from God that I was not born with, to take another life. And that life covers all of my pasts, but it does not cover today. Because today I might live out the lie, I'm God. So when I see the life of Adam coming out of me, I go and evaluate with God. And we may do this in different ways, but the ways I do it is sometimes I go in nature and I talk to God about what happened yesterday. Other times I I have a diary that I probably will never read again, but when you write things down, you keep your mind in one place, so it's nice to keep your concentration. And there I go and I talk to God and I say, so where did I try to play God yesterday? You see, sometimes we think we did all right, and we will go to the cross the next morning and talk to our Savior, and we will realize that everything looked so neat before I started searching. But when I started searching, I found that everything I did yesterday, I did for myself. And every day, when I see the deception that I am God, and I think I must control the circumstances and the outside and other people, I give up the deception and walk away from it by reason, by faith. And God forgives accordingly. And this is the outer process of forgiveness, and inside is a process of giving up the old life. Little by little, the deception will grow smaller, and the life of Christ will grow greater. And in the end, when we reach the final hours of this earth's history, I am counting on being alive at the time, but who knows, I might end up as a martyr. I will forever be the new creature. Now, since there is only one life, I will be one of the many sons of God, because it does not matter which gender you have. There's only one life to inherit. We will still have a female body and a male body, but the life of Christ is just one. It might take a lot of trial to get me to the end, because I'm a very, very stubborn person and I learn very slowly. But I must have the confidence, and all of us must have the confidence, that no matter how evil it looks, that which come out of me, I am on the road and I do not let go. See, this is the temptations, the greatest temptations that comes to the one who starts on this journey. It is to let go and give up, because I might just be too horrible to save. But we must come to the understanding that when the evil come out of me, put me in the situation deliberately to help me see that evil. We talked a little bit about it because we, on this trip we were on, I think Thursday, we were going to the mountain, Manganui, Mountain Manganui, and we went to the top, and when you are up there you have the most gorgeous view, and we also brought our bathing suits because, I don't know about you, but I absolutely love beaches. I love water, I love sunshine, and white sand, I mean, who can resist? And I had actually decided not to go surfing because I thought it was too expensive, but I had a benefactor that helped me. And so I was going for the surfing lesson, and I had the nicest idea from the surfing lesson, because as much as I hate to be corrected, I hate it even more when I make mistakes. So please correct me. But this is even the deception, because if you hate to make mistakes, what must you do? You must avoid living. You might as well stop breathing because you breathe in selfishness. So you go to do the surfing lesson, and how will you avoid to make mistakes? You will just stay on your tummy, because there you can barely make mistakes. But will you ever learn to surf? No. So you must get up on that surfing board and fall over and get water in your ears and in your nose and everywhere. And you have so much salt in this sea. We don't have as much in Denmark, and so it was itching. But the only way to learn it is to keep on making mistakes. And so every time I made mistakes, the surfing teacher would come and say, he was very nice. He was very nice. I don't know if he knew me. It sounded like he knew me already before. And he was like, I'm not trying to criticize, but if you just do like this and this, very careful not to do anything. He was very nice. And I got up on the surfing board. I didn't stay there for so long all the time, but I got up and I was very happy. But the only way to learn to surf or swim in this universe is to stay in the water and keep on trying. Keep on trying getting up on that board. So we never give up, and we don't look as if the falling is against us. The falling is what needs to be there for us to learn how to do the things right. In these 2 days, we've learned that the prescription for any disease and suffering is a new life that works by love. But we must come to understand what kind of love. See, the love of the Creator is eternal. And the love of the Creator has at least 2 dimensions that we must come to understand. And those dimensions is that I must have 100% interest for my neighbor. And who's our neighbor? Everyone, and especially my enemy. You know the story of the Samaritan? Who comes to help the Israelite? His enemy. This is the kind of love we must have. That means that no one can make me love them less. I will always have an interest for my neighbor, no matter what he does. The other dimension is the liberty for my neighbor to do exactly what he wants. That means that I never need to control anyone again. Not even by my breath when I sit next to my sister in the car. My breath shows me that I am still trying to control the other one. No, it's a very small example. It looks like a small thing. But the root of my controlling my sister's driving is the same root that made Moses kill the Egyptian. So it doesn't matter how little the outside looks. It doesn't matter how small, as subtle a situation we have. It's the same root that if I do not expel it from my heart, it will end up destroying me, and I will be on the side of those who said, didn't I do this for you? Didn't I do that for you? Didn't I do blah, blah, blah? Because I just covered it up because it was not that big of a deal. The other thing coming from this liberty for my neighbor is that I will never leave anyone or isolate myself to protect myself. Now I have a nice story from at home. Maybe we take this first. What is it then that in our selfish nature we do to look like loving people? We have an interest in our neighbor. That means that I have an interest in him, but I have an interest in him for myself. This is sometimes what happened between me and my mother. I want my mother happy, but I want my mother happy for me. And my mom says, when we discuss the things, she says, oh, but I love you so much. And I tell her, yes, you love me so much, but your frustration with me shows you that you love me for yourself. She doesn't like it so much. But she still likes me, though. So what happens on the other side of the other dimension that looks like liberty, it is an apparent indifference towards my neighbor when he doesn't obey my commands. That means he is allowed to do whatever he wants, but I will keep staying over here, away from him. So I put myself higher than him, thinking that he can do whatever he wants, but I still believe he does it to me, and I just keep myself, what do you call it? I think they call it emotional unavailable or something, yeah? So you make a distance between yourself and the other one. So it looks like liberty, but it's really just trying to be indifferent. But can you ever be indifferent if you think someone has taken something from you or kept something from you? You can never be indifferent. You just believe yourself to be, it's such a deep deception. Believe yourself to be indifferent. So we have the unchangeable source of love that we must connect to come to understand how to love like this. And it is the only being that is completely independent. He has no needs and is the eternal source of all love and life. Can you ever give him anything? What can you give him that is already yours or his? The only thing you can come with is the evil idea that I am God. That's all you can give him. He has no needs of your love, of your offerings, of your anything. He has no needs of anything from you. Yes. So what about the command that it says that you should love your God with all of your heart and all your mind and all your soul? What is loving God? Is it taking or is it giving? It is taking. It is trusting that God will do his job. And faith is that there is power enough for me to do my job. Yeah? So that's the giving. Or even faith is taking, but then you go to do the job because you take the information from God in faith. Yeah? So loving God is not a giving. Worshipping God is not a giving. It is a taking to give. Yeah? So obedience and worship is to take from God and to do the job that he put you to do. Yeah? So we cannot give anything to God, but we must put him in the side of taking and taking alone. What we confuse is we take people and we put them on the side of taking and on the side of giving, and we put God on the side of taking and we put God on the side of giving. But you cannot have cause and effects in both ends. So you must have only one place to take and only one place or all the people around you where you give. You don't want to put God in the end of giving, and you don't want to put people in the end of taking. This is what we must get rid of. Yeah? So the love of God is eternal. It never stops. He has no force for the good. There is always liberty for his children, 100% liberty for his children. There is maximal interest for his children. There is no conditioning. He never gives to get something from you. All others do, but God never does. There is 100% respect for his children, and he never leaves his children, but he allows his children to leave. Now this is, I think, my favorite part. It's the result, of course, of 100% liberty and the maximal interest. But I had something happen to me recently. Since the crisis started, I started preaching a little bit more in my church because they didn't want people from other places to come because of the fear of the outside. And so they had me preaching for some weeks, maybe a couple of months. And after a while, they didn't like the message because we would like that the problem is outside of ourselves. And so they told me not to preach anymore. Do you think I was happy? I was furious. I had been to the capital where I had given a lecture about disease, and the theologian over there later discovered that it was recorded and put up on the internet, and he went through the video and he made a long analysis of all the things that was wrong, and he misunderstood most of what I said. And he wrote me a long letter of how he thought I was walking away from Adventist tradition. Do you like it? And my church members went behind my back to the theologian to get the analysis of the speaking or the talk that I did in Copenhagen. So I was very upset. After a while, though, they would let me teach in Sabbath school. And I thought, okay, I still have a purpose. So I teach in Sabbath school, and what do you teach in Sabbath school? Exactly the same as you teach from the pulpit. So after a while, they wouldn't let me teach the Sabbath school anymore, and I thought, my job here is done. I was in conflict with myself, because my alarm would tell me that I was wrong, but deception is just so difficult. So difficult. So even though I saw my wrong effect, I saw my anger, I saw my depression, I saw all these things coming out of me, I still thought, oh, but Lord, I cannot stay here. It's without any purpose I go here. They cannot teach them anything. No one will listen to me. I'm only coming here to play the piano, and what does that do any difference? And I read some verses in the Bible. You know how you misinterpret the Bible when you're so deceived? I read, you just brush the sand of your feet and you go to the next church. But when do you do this? When they persecute you. Did they persecute me? No, they just told me to be silent. Okay, so I had a few weeks and I was in such trouble. And I went to a few other churches and I thought, maybe I come here. Maybe they will listen, and surely they will let me preach. At least they did for a while, and then that church was so small, it actually had to close not so long ago. But even before that, God got a hold of me, so that was very good. He makes a lot of effort. And I realized that if God never leaves his children, or I think actually just the realization that God never leaves his children, it came to my mind. And I had it was such an attractive idea that it did something to me. And I realized that God does not only not leave me as his child, he doesn't leave any one of his children. And if I am the child of God, how can I leave his children? I still get in trouble sometimes when I go to church. But I generally go there now with a smile on my face, with plenty and hugs and kisses for my church family. Because that is what they are. They are my family. They may not see things as I see them yet. And I don't know if they will come to see it. But I should hope and believe that they will. It just makes such a change with us when we see the wrong that is in us and we expel the deception, and then we can love them. I am not in the place of Paul yet where I can see that I'm ready to give up my eternal life for my church family. But I am working every day to learn to love like my Father in heaven. I want to kill anything in me that wants to be the highest one. I want to kill anything in me that compares myself to the other one, thinking that I am smaller or that I am better. I want to kill anything in me that makes me think that I know whether the other one will take the truth or not. Anything that makes me God. But I must learn to fight the right battles, because just like everyone else, I tend to try and cut off the leaves of the tree. So let's see where the battle must go on. We have the invisible part, which is the subconscious heart, and the consciousness, our will, our conscience, and our mind. And then we have that which is visible. And it says actions, but we have more than actions. We have also disease and other stuff over here. And so over here in the subconscious part, we have our identity. Who do I believe myself to be? And this is the beginning of any thought, of any action. Here we have the thoughts, and the thoughts in the mind and the actions is what is called effects. And where do we tend usually to make the fight? On the effects. Now, the identity that I am God will bring out compulsion, fear, pressure, guilt, loneliness, hopelessness. It will give me disease, it will give me addictions, it will give me conflicts and eating disorders and many things. And the only place I can fight it correctly is if I don't look to those effects. I recognize them to be there, but I don't spend my powers there, because it is an endless battle and I will lose it. I will end up spending all my powers, all my thinking, all my capacity, everything I have on fighting a battle that I will never win. And it will only bring discouragement, and it will only take me to a place where I wish I was never alive anymore. So what I must do is to crucify the idea that I am God. And then all these things will come into place. I will have free thoughts. I will never make a decision again because I am put under pressure. No matter what people will think about me, I will not be hurried. I will not be forced. See, they cannot force me, but I believe so. The only way is that they withhold their love from me, and because of my dependency on them, I must make decisions according to their will. But if I have crucified the idea that I am God, then I will take from the right place and I will give to the right place, and I never have to do another decision when I'm under pressure. I will have reasonable thoughts. I will not try to do the impossible. I will stop trying to cut off the leaves of the tree. I will have hope. I will have thoughts of joy. I will have thoughts of wisdom. And one day, this is all that will be left. And none of this will ever appear on my tree again. So I encourage you to enter this fight, this battle. A battle that does not look to your effects. A battle that does not go against your addiction. A battle that does not go against the people around you. But a battle of changing your life with another life. If you put all your effort into fighting this battle, you will experience that life will be much more joyful. It will be the most freeing experience you've ever had. And you might get healed from your disease. So this is my encouragement. Fight a battle, but fight the right one, and don't give up.
Thank you so much, Michala and Stephanie. We're going to just have a short break, about 5 minutes before we start the Q&A. So have a wee break, stretch your legs, and we'll see you back here very soon.